Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident rower who's respected by your peers. You can become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caroe, and I'm joined by Marlene Royle.
Hello, Rebecca, and hello to our Masters audience.
Yeah, Faster Masters.
Yeah.
From all over the world.
Getting faster all the time, right? We've been through almost a whole sprint season now. We've got Visa World Masters coming up, one more big kind of event, but
yeah, that's early September. And I've seen a few mentions online of people going to Libourne. And
yes.
Looks like it's going to be an awesome regatta. After that, of course, we in New Zealand have our Masters National Championships. It's at the end of September, so it's the 18th. It's a 2-day regatta. It's been really interesting. Are you familiar with the block racing format?
You mean in terms of like heat, semifinals, repechage, and that?
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit more than that. So what they do is they take that obviously classic heat semi-final repechage. I'm not sure we have repechages. Progression. But what they do is they define from like 8 a.m. through to 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. They have, I think, 15 events. So it could be the women's A pair, the men's E quad, the women's F8, so that they're really separated in ages. And they run that entire event in that 3-hour period.
Oh, that's great.
And then they run mixed races at the end of the block. And then they have a small gap, and then they start a new block. And so what's so interesting from a club organization point of view is boat sharing becomes much easier. So you just allocate the boat to that one crew for that block. They set it up the way they want. It does require you to be fitter because you need to do sometimes 3 races in quite quick succession. But it's really great because actually then over the course of a 2-day regatta, you don't have all the finals right at the end with everyone chasing around like madmen. And it keeps people there and interested, throughout. It's not like, hey, I just got knocked out of everything, so I'm going to go to the bar.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, I think just having 3 races relatively close to each other instead of one at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then your final is at 5 o'clock in the evening, and you have to sort of hang around all day going back and forth to your car or back and forth to the hotel or something like that. It just seems like it's much, much more efficient than in terms of resting for the next day as well.
Exactly. Having said that, I've been trying to do the whole schedule for my club. And we have a couple of people where all their events are on day 2, not on day 1. So that's, a little bit of a hiccup. It's not insurmountable because there are quite often mixed events where what they do is the mixed events, they don't do heat semi-final. They divide you up based on the average age of the crew. So, say it's the E mixed quads, they'll average all the crews and they'll go, right, the youngest lot, you will go in heat 1. The next, they call them divisions, heat 2, division 3, and so on.
Well, that's similar, I think, to the FISA World Masters Regatta. When they split them up, there's no heat semifinals, et cetera. It's just one race, but they group them in the same age categories within the age category. So.
Correct. That's exactly right. And so, although you can't say I am the fastest, you just have to compare times between heats, and everyone knows that it's okay. But if the weather conditions change, it can be. Not a direct comparison, well, not a fair direct comparison. Anyway, so that's something that New Zealand rowing learned from Australia Masters rowing. And it's certainly worthwhile looking at. If anyone's interested, get in touch. I have a little PDF of and a spreadsheet of all of the events and the sequence of racing. The only thing I found so far, which is really annoying, we have some women who want to do a C coxless 4, and there are a B double and a D double, and the D double is in the same block as the C coxless 4. So I said, well, don't worry, let's look elsewhere in the regatta and see if you can race down and do the B coxless 4, and it's in the same block.
Oh,
So
gee, oh, that's a
as is
bummer.
the A. So A and B is combined because actually we don't have very many people in those age categories. So it's the A, B, and the C happen to be in the same racing block, which is a little unfortunate, but that's okay. I'll point it out to them and see if they can fix that for next year.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. I mean, there's so much to coordinate with all the age groups and the boat classes. I mean, it's a tremendous task for any organizing committee to balance all of that, for sure.
I know that everybody laughs at me, and I don't take this personally, as I do version 1 and I send it to a small group of people, and then I've just sent it round to everyone and said, look, and I've highlighted in green all the mixed events that we could do. You know, if you'd like to do a mixed event, you know, pick out your own crew or say you want to do that, and I'll try and pull a crew together. And inevitably, people are coming back now going, oh, I just had carpal tunnel operation yesterday. I have an eye operation that just got scheduled for, you know, the week before. Someone else has just ripped his back. Someone else has had COVID. You know, someone else has decided they can only do sweep and they're not confident enough sculling. And, you know, this is not me complaining. This is me reflecting the normal facts of life of being a master's squad of rowers.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, and that I would say, in our reflecting on the week, I mean, that has definitely been something that as an organizer of a master's program, who are all singles, you know, you just have to be honestly so flexible, you know, because things just happen in the lives of master's athletes. You know, they have older parents to take care of. Right now, kids are getting ready to go to school, so that starts changing. Oh, I can't come to the 6:45, but I can come to 8:15. And, you know, unpredictable, you know, vacations. I think that's something I've noticed a lot this year, is that, you know, we've had 2 summers of COVID where nobody went anywhere. Yeah. So everybody, well, and it was the norm for us that, you know, of the core regular group, everybody was there all the time. Yeah. And now everyone's going away on vacations at all different times. And so it's a little weak like this week, you know, all our sort of regular people for certain sessions, like everybody's gone. And I was like, oh, well, great. I get a weekend off, you know, but
everyone's gone.
You know, yeah, everybody's gone. But I mean, it's an adjustment because we got used to all of us being there all the time because nobody was traveling. Nobody could go anywhere. Right. And now people are, you know, a lot more movement of coming in and out. And, you know, people, especially, you know, rowers like to travel, and, you know, they like to go places and see stuff. And, you know, I'm definitely noticing managing all that on the schedule, you know, and you just, you know, you have to go with it. You can't say, no, you can't go. You must come to rowing class. You know what I mean? But I mean, just a lot more flexibility, and, you know, and things just happen. You know, my mom fell down, not my mom, but someone said, you know, my mother-in-law got injured. My mother-in-law broke her hip. She's got to go to the hospital. I can't come and row this weekend, you know? So, I mean, just life lives you, as Amy Johnson says.
Now, lovely news from this past week is we got some unsolicited testimonials, which I'm so proud of. And I'd very much like to share one, which says, Rebecca, I just wanted to thank you for some racing advice you shared on the podcast. It was the concept of breaking the race down into 250-meter segments out of the 1K, giving each a personality and an objective. I used this approach at US Masters Nationals. It worked wonderfully in my F single sculls race, winning my heat and coming third in the final. Most importantly, I rode my race plan and PB'd in both races. The mindset approach was a huge key. Well, thank you so much. And it's lovely to hear, you know, when we've done something that's been helpful for you.
Oh, yeah. And I actually received a wonderful email as well, from a woman sculler in the US. And she said, I've been a faster master since 2021. Your program has worked wonders for me. I was struggling with improving my fitness, and your plan lays out very clearly what I need to do. Initially, I didn't ask you why you propose the pieces you do. There is always a method to the madness here. In my mind, when I read what the pieces were for that day, I just said, okay, coach, I can do that. I'm slowly learning more about the why behind your program with all the podcasts and other reading, but the bottom line is having a program I could follow has changed rowing and racing for me. And she goes on to share her results in her sprint races, and some of the athletes that she got to row with and who were higher level athletes, and she was able to row really well with these athletes, and which was great because that can be pretty intimidating, get into a boat with, like, some elite athletes. And then she concludes, at any rate, I wanted to thank you for providing people like me the opportunity to train for results, and so far I feel the training has benefited me and my teammates greatly. It has made rowing and racing more fun, and I look forward to continued growth. And thank you. And this is exactly what we're aiming to do, with the Faster Masters, with our the core program, which is a competitive program. We also have the fitness program for people who want to train with a lot of attention and mindfulness, but it doesn't emphasize the racing skills. It still emphasizes the fitness skills and the technical skills. But it really helps us to get this feedback as well. And so, we always like when people send us feedback, because we do adjust things based on feedback. So
we certainly do. And this week I chose as my photograph. This is Cherie Abrams and her crew at the US Masters Nationals. And it was the first time that she went to this regatta. And later on, she said that they had got a medal as well. So yes, congratulations to Cherie.
So Vero Beach, yes, that is in Florida. I know Vero Beach rowing very well. Very nice. And not a very, very old club, by the way, either. But
so today's show is sponsored by the Head Racing Training Program. We know it's still August, but that means you've got just under 3 months, depending on when your race is, to train and get fit for head racing. And as experienced athletes know, it's not the same sort of fitness as you need for when you're doing sprint racing. You may be doing local races or heading out for a really big event overseas. Everyone needs a program designed for masters. Faster Masters Rowing has a specific head racing fall program included in our monthly subscription plans. These are for individuals, for crews, or for clubs. You pick the one that suits you. And in it, you'll be gradually introduced to longer distance workouts and higher stroke rates. Each program is customized to your personal strength and fitness. Find out more at fastermastersrowing.com/our-courses and get ready now for your big day. Now, I went on holiday, vacation, as you call it. I always find holidays and vacations a confusing concept in America. And I went to Henley. Well, I went to a different Henley. I went to the middle of Australia, to a town called Alice Springs, which is in the desert, a very long way from anywhere. And I attended a regatta called Henley on Todd. And this is definitely one that you want to be mindful of when it comes to your, maybe, I think possibly, your wish list of crazy things that you might want to do one day. And the basic concept is it's a fundraiser for the local Rotary Club. And back in 1962, they decided to run a Henley regatta. Now, people who don't know Australians won't know that as a nation, they're very good at laughing at themselves. They don't take themselves too seriously. So the photo you see here is the dry riverbed. I mean, it really is a riverbed, but they've laid it out as a regatta course with seating. There's a grass bank in the background, and on the other side, they have a VIP tent with food and drink, lots of food carts, and it's a day-long regatta where you just turn up with your crew and enter on the day. Races include kayaking, surfboard rescue. They have kiddies races like egg and spoon. But this one, which I wanted to show you, is the race, which is called surf skiing.
Go, Heidi, go, Heidi.
And what you can see here is 4 people with their feet on 2 planks of wood. They're hooked on with rubber bands, and they're trying to, going the wrong way. They're trying to race together in time. And trust me, this isn't easy. So they all have their hands on each other's shoulders, and they have to go down and round an oil drum.
Heidi, that's you.
It's not as easy as it looks. And I had the delightful opportunity during the regatta to do a race with 9 of my relatives, because we were there in town for a slightly different celebration. So it was a 10-man boat, and we got to you had to like run down the river course in this, carrying a little frame boat. And the frame is it's basically like tent poles. And this is me and the crew after we won. It has a fake, sail at the top and little horizontal bars that you hold on to. And we did a heat, which we won quite comfortably. And then in the final, it was really close between us and the 102 FM crew, which, as you can see, is behind us there. And as we got to the finishing line, the people at the front decided, without telling any of us, to dive over the line. So they literally jumped and they pulled all the rest of us forward, and we all ended up tumbling out over the sand. So it was hilarious, pretty crazy, and all in all, something that I highly recommend anyone doing. If you've done Canadian Henley and British Henley, it's just another one.
It sounds like loads of fun, especially in the middle of the desert.
And it's winter time, so although it was sunny, it wasn't too hot. But yeah, so these crazy Australians, she says, knowing that my grandmother was born there. So as my husband says, you're half Australian yourself. Now, our big topic for the day is overtraining. And it may seem like a bit of a strange thing to be doing at a time of year when perhaps people are having more rest days and vacations and so on. But it is something that can happen to you at almost any time. And remember, we're talking about masters as a cohort. We are the most diverse stream of athletes in any rowing context. There is more physical and capability diversity in masters than there is in juniors, than there is in seniors, partly because of our age ranges, partly because of our physical limitations, partly because within our group, we will have retired Olympians and complete beginners. And so overtraining is something that is mostly a mindfulness need. You need to be aware of what it is and whether or not it's affecting you. Marlene, do you want to run through the high-level summary of what is overtraining?
Well, you can think of overtraining as, other terms for this might be also overstress. So you start to get burned out, you start to get your system starts to get run down. Generally, it's kind of, it can be inspired by increasing your training volume too fast and your body just doesn't adapt to it, or increasing the intensity or doing too much intensity, like you're doing intervals every day, and you're not building in the balance of appropriate recovery. And then at some point, your body is going to give you some pretty clear signs. You got to stop. And if you don't rest, it's going to create a situation that basically will force you to rest and to recover. So that's kind of like there's some clear signs that we can talk about, but that's kind of an big overview is your body needs recovery. So another term that's used in the literature is under recovery as well as overtraining. So under recovery or overtraining there's kind of two different types, actually. There's one type which is quite muscular, like your muscles just hurt, they're achy, they don't feel very good, it's just difficult, you're kind of out of glycogen, it's just difficult to do anything. And then there's another type of overtraining which is more central nervous system. So it's kind of like you feel your coordination isn't good, your balance isn't very good, you just kind of mentally don't feel very good, motivation goes down. So that can be when just your general central nervous system is a bit overloaded and tired, which is a little bit different than just a muscular type of tiredness. But it's all, again, under the same umbrella, but they can have a little bit different presentations.
Tell us about a time when you have suffered overtraining.
I haven't been through it much because I was extremely careful about it all the time. But there was one time in university when we were just pushing very, very hard, and and there was just a point where you just kind of felt like you were starting to break down, and you just were not recovering, not just from day to day, but you just were not recovering for a longer period of time. And then I ended up with a very bad muscle strain in my back, which I'm sure was, right there. I mean, I just felt it go, I can remember the day in the tanks. I just heard it rip right up my back. And, and it was the response of just too high a training load, too fast, not enough recovery. And it took it took me out for a whole season, basically. It took a long time to recover the muscle strain, which was, the overtraining started to recover because then I was off, right, from the regular training. But the muscle strain took a long time to get back into actual racing. And then even for the whole summer, I had to be really careful about rowing. Like I couldn't get in a boat with people who were novices, or the boat was going to be really unset, and because that would just be bad. So that was my main experience, because after that I was actually extremely careful all the time. And I was quite fortunate not to really experience a lot of injuries, even with a lot of training. But I also, like, we could talk a little bit about what some of the signs are, because I used to back off really quickly.
So one of the things that causes overtraining is regular training. And this might sound a little bit oblique or conflicting, but the fact is a training program is designed to stress your body. It's designed to make your muscles work hard, to make your lungs work hard, to make your brain work hard too. And it's designed to increase those stresses in a planned, regular process. Now, you may have heard of things like mega cycles and mesocycles and mini cycles. So some training programs work on, for example, a 3-week cycle of a base training week, a slightly higher volume and intensity training week, and then a really high intense week, and then it drops down to the base again. And so what Marlene's described, that cycle of training harder and with more and more intensity, is normal. And you can see, if you put that together with a bunch of athletes, all with unique physiology, the possibility of overtraining can happen. And we'll talk a little bit later about how not to get it, how to avoid it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to just back off. There are some scientific ways you can address this for yourself. But overtraining is something that comes as normal because we are trying to get fitter we have to push boundaries.
Yes, and it's just pushing the boundaries in an appropriate way. And that's why a well-designed training program is going to help you manage this and know when to build in recovery and when to build up the stress and not to do it too fast. So it's easy to be very ambitious sometimes, but so some of the most common warning signs. Your resting heart rate is high in the morning. So if it's very good to track your normal resting heart rate in the morning and know what's normal for you. Generally, like, let's just say it's 50. As you get into better shape, your resting heart rate goes down because your heart is able to work stronger. And when you do your category 6 rowing, your base work, that actually increases the amount that your heart, when you're not working at super high heart rate, so your heart can expand and then contract stronger, expand, then contract stronger. So that's why you don't want to work at too high of heart rates when you're doing lower base work. Because as you get fitter, your heart is going to get stronger, pump more blood per beat, and your resting heart rate goes down. When you're getting signs of overtraining, you're going to see your heart rate start to creep up. So a general rule of thumb that I use is, if your heart rate is, and it takes a little while to get a sense of what your normal is, but if you're about 5 beats higher than normal, keep an eye on things, start paying attention to a little more recovery, not go, just pay attention. If your heart rate starts running 10 beats higher than normal for for one day, again, keep an eye on it. But if it starts being a few days in a row, that's one sign that you're experiencing some overstress. And my advice usually then is, like, just back off on your interval work and just like scale back for a couple days and just kind of let it go down. Another sign can be you start to get some injuries. You just start some old injury starts to nag at you again. Okay. Overtraining is going to go to a weak spot. So if you've got that old injury, it might start to rear its head again. That's another side. Feeling really just flat affect, like you're just not psyched up for training. You're just kind of not into it. You're sort of really dragging your butt. That's definitely a sign of under recovery. And lack of motivation. Lack of motivation is a big one. Or even feeling a little bit depressed. That nervous system tiredness where, you just don't have any zip and zoom. Appetite can drop. And that can be another one. Like, you just don't really feel like eating. You just don't really feel like much of anything. So those are some of the big ones. Achy muscles, just like, ow, everything just kind of hurts. Like when you walk up the stairs, everything just kind of hurts. And those are real common kinds of signs. Like everything just kind of feels a little, like it's going downhill a little bit.
Yeah. I definitely, personally, it tends to show up for me in lack of sleep, tends to
interruption of sleep.
Yeah, signs on. So I was at the boathouse, something happened, our crew couldn't go out. So I went back home and jumped back into bed and was able to sleep for another 2 hours. That's not normal for me. What's normal for me is I might get back into bed, but once I'm awake, I'm awake. Mm-hmm. And I could read in bed or, but no, this didn't happen. It was like gone and asleep again. So that could be an under recovery rather than necessarily overtraining. And they're kind of flip sides of the same coin. But again, I have trained myself to watch for these warning signs and just to take a mental note. You don't always have to write these down in your training diary. If you're a habitual training diary user, it's a great way to go. If you use various apps, Marlene, show off your new toy. on your wrist.
Oh, here, yes.
Marlene went shopping.
Yes.
But a lot of the modern apps will track these things for you. And it's not just a matter of doing the readings. You do also need to review your day by day actual readings over a period, which might be a week or a month, so that you just get a sense of what's normal for you. So that's a sort of a broad summary of what the warning signs are. However, most athletes are just usually dying to get back into regular training, what they would consider normal. So how can we use the downtime profitably so that we are a better, stronger, more prepared athlete when we come back?
Well, just because you experience overtraining doesn't mean that you have to stop all activity. You have to change your activity. So one big tip is just go down to base training. So if you feel you can do your lower intensity rows, your longer distance rows, but avoid hard like AT work and interval work, race pace work until your heart rate is back down to normal. So you can put in your easier workouts. I would just not go overboard in the time, but it's also generally advisable for recovery not to be on your feet. So it's better to row easy. It's better to cycle and go out on your bike easy. That would be better than going for a jog. That is one thing that is a little bit different. Like getting off your feet is going to be a little bit less demanding than, say, going for a run. Walking could be good because it's low intensity. So you can drop your activity level to just lower intensities. It doesn't mean that you need to necessarily stop, but you might want to also just do something more, for example, like just going out for a row to enjoy nature, just kind of not having competitive pressure on your mind. That's one way, just enjoying your surroundings, getting out into a different environment, just going for a bike ride somewhere that's more relaxing. That's one way to use this downtime. Other ways are go out in the coach boat.
Yes.
With your coach. If you're really like, you've got, sometimes it can be bad and you need a few days completely off. But if you want to be with your crew, go out in the coach boat, observe the boat, be with the team. You don't necessarily have to not be with your team during this period of time. They could be on the ergs, for example, and maybe you're just doing an easy spin on the spinning bike, right? It's active rest. So you could still be together with your team doing things. If you really have to back up, or, great things, go get a sports massage. That's going to really help improve your recovery. The relaxation, and also just addressing any areas in your body that might be just really, really tired. Your nutrition is big for overtraining, getting your protein, getting your B vitamins. If it's quite severe, you'll probably want to have a blood profile done and have them check your iron, have them check other key factors like your B12, because B12 is very closely related to your nerves, and B12 helps your nervous system and your nerve conduction recover quite well. So looking at those foods that are going to give you good protein, iron, B vitamins. So diet is very, very important for recovering. Absolutely.
And I would add in, try something that you don't habitually include in your program. So take a yoga class. Nearly all of us could be more flexible, more mobile. And it doesn't matter what age you are, you can do yoga appropriate to your age and your mobility. Do core work. You can probably still do sit-ups, press-ups, simple core strengthening, Pilates, all of these exercises won't exercise your heart and lungs to extreme, but they can help you build up strength in areas that perhaps, sorry, hand on heart, I know I neglect.
Well, yes, and I think that's a good point, that you don't want to raise your heart rate really high when you're in a state of overstress. You want to participate in activities that help you feel better. Like, you certainly don't, if you don't have to stop cold, you might need a couple days of just really rest, but that's not going to go far, because you're going to feel like you want to do something and move. So flexibility work, mobility, things that just loosen up your muscles, going for a walk, getting outside for your mental state is really good. But you don't want to raise your heart rate up. That is the thing, that you can do easy aerobic work, but you don't want to get into the AT zone and those harder zones, because they contribute quite a bit more stress from a training point of view. So you just want to downgrade all that until your heart rate's down back to normal. When your heart rate comes down to normal and you start to feel better, you're gonna say, you know what? Okay, I feel ready to go now. And it's a little bit like at the end of the racing season when we have a transition. A lot of times people want to jump right into winter training, and I'm like, no, please wait a little bit, and I want you to back up. And I tell them, I want, go into an active rest period until you really feel like you're ready to get back to training again. Like you feel normal and about your normal level of motivation. So I think, that's what you're looking for here as well.
And the key to coming back to training is the number of days off you have had is the number of days you need before you can go back to full training. So you've been off for 3 days, you might train light, medium for 2 days, and then get back on the 3rd or the 4th day into the regular training. Been off for 10 days, you might come back only doing something alternate days, or maybe doing yoga on the intervening days. So remember the rule of thumb, because you don't want to be out again.
Yes. And for adult athletes, the older you are, the more difficult it is to rebound, because just, all the healing process just happens slower. So, prevention is a much, much better approach, in my opinion. And, I like to advise, err on the side of caution, be conservative. I would much rather say, take an extra weekend off than risk 3 weeks off or something like that. So, I just think, even you have a plan is a plan. If you need an extra day off in the middle of the week, take it. You didn't sleep well, build that in. You do have to be reasonable about getting enough rest. So training, like when you really haven't had enough sleep, is also not that advisable, and sleep issues certainly affect masters, men and women, quite a lot. They're just nights when sleep is interrupted quite a bit. And, that's something to manage, and it's not always easy. So you might need an extra day off here and there.
I recall back in the day when I was training in a club, Debbie Flood, who's a very successful British women's athlete, came to join us for the 8's Head of the River. The British team used to release athletes back to their clubs to do this race. And she'd been in the squad for a couple of years. She'd never been in a sweep boat. So it was a lot of fun for her. It was a lot of fun for us having her in the boat. And, she came, I think, for maybe couple of weekends before the big race. And I remember we would train, we would then go up to the club room and we would have tea and toast and talk, and then we'd go out and do a second session. And I remember her lying next to the radiator, curled up on the floor without even a cushion, fast asleep in between outings. And for me, that was like, oh man, she looks like she's suffering. Is this just that they train them so hard in the national team? And, she didn't have a great summer season that year. It was, I think, 2001, Lucerne was where the World Championships were. And, she was hugely disappointed with her doubles result. But I suspect, maybe, I'll have to ask her, looking back, that maybe she'd been overtrained for quite a long time, that this was showing in March.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's, sometimes you're on that. I mean, everyone who's competitive, you ride the edge, you ride the edge of, what's a little too much. And, it doesn't matter for elite athletes, masters, the people who are really competitive are going to push. And you just have to, takes a lot of control and self-awareness to manage that. And, it's also, I think if you make changes, like you change a coach, you change a training program, these are also, when you have major changes, these are also times when you have to be a little bit careful, because the effect of the training might be different, because it might, session to session might build differently, and it might have a really different effect on you. So, when you make changes like coaches or programs, again, give it a transition period, and just, allow yourself some adaptation. It's always better to adapt on the cellular level. Okay. So you have to think that you are composed of little cells, right? You're not a big muscle. Okay. Don't think like you're a big muscle. You are composed of many, many, many millions of little cells, and each little cell has to change. So you have to allow time for that to happen. You can't say, okay, I'm going to change this big muscle. It doesn't happen that way. Muscles change on the level of your cells. That takes a little bit of time. It doesn't happen in a week, So it's an ongoing process. And, if you think of yourself on the microscopic level, I think it helps you think about training from the inside out, not from the outside in.
I like that. That's a great thought. Now, we'd like to thank everybody who supports this podcast. So if you're listening now and you've heard one thing that you think has been useful, that you can put into practice in your own rowing, please join us in our podcast supporters. Go to fastermastersrowing.com/podcast, and the support starts at $1 per month. Podcast supporters get a little extra surprises from us in the mail, which we don't tell you about because we like them to be a surprise. And we are extremely grateful for every single one of you who is with us on this particular journey. So this has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, the show dedicated to masters athletes who want fun, fitness, and confidence in their rowing. You can become a student of the sport by buying a Faster Masters Rowing program subscription at fastermastersrowing.com/join. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.